Hello everybody, welcome to episode number 6 of the Real Talk Real Estate Show. Happy 2017. As you know, we are recapping our markets. We started with Washington, D.C. Last week we let you know about Northern Virginia. And this week, to kick off 2017 and to look back on 2016, we are talking about Montgomery County, Maryland. So here we go. Starting with Montgomery County overall, we didn't really see much change from last year to this year in the median home sale price, which as of today hovers right at that $400,000 mark. So starting there, not much change, but I did want to break down our biggest winners because as you know, within the county, there are certain areas that did better than others. It's interesting, and I'll start with this. Boyd's, Maryland. We're talking the Northern Neck, Sugarloaf Mountain, that part of the county. In median home sale price, we're talking a 50% increase, which is dramatic and incredible from $492,000 to $740,000. That's an incredible uptick. Interestingly enough, neighboring Poolesville, Maryland, we saw the exact same thing, a 50% increase in the median home sale price, up from $375,000 to $562,000. Again, I don't know if that is because the prices have increased by 50%. That would be unrealistic, but I do think there are higher sales occurring in those areas, and ultimately that's driving up that median home sale price. So it's just telling there are more expensive sales occurring in those areas. We saw the same thing in Brookville, Maryland, which is kind of on the other side of the county, but again, a far out part of the county. We went up from $419,000 to $585,000, which is a 39% increase. Another one, a little bit surprising, but I guess when I thought about it, it's not super surprising. Montgomery Village, Maryland, traditionally a very affordable area, hovered at $204,000 on average last year. It's up to $277,000, which put us at a 35% increase, got you on the winners list. That area is interesting. I'll come back to that. Other than that, we saw Rockville, Maryland, Mount Airy, Maryland, Clarksburg, Tacoma Park, they all won too. We're talking the 5 to 15% increases in the median home sale prices. So any of those areas definitely were worth mentioning because I just saw an increase there. But as you know, and if you've been watching our last couple episodes, we don't just focus on median home sale prices. It's important to also then look at the cost per foot because 1 square foot of real estate costs something all the time. And if you monitor what that costs, it will give you a deeper insight to the overall values. So looking at that, the average cost per square foot in Montgomery County, interestingly enough, is around $272,000. And where I saw the most increases were all areas that were performing below the county average. In other words, less expensive areas are seeing the best gains cost per square foot. And I'll explain that here in a second. Sandy Spring, Maryland, for instance, we saw a 31% increase in cost per square foot, which still puts them only at $244,000, which is $30 less per foot than an average. But it was a 31% increase. Only Maryland, we saw the same thing, up 21% to $257 a foot. Durwood, Maryland, we went up a good 5% to $240,000. Again, most of the county really didn't move much in cost per square foot, but these areas, and again, we saw the same thing in Rockville, up 5% cost per foot. So these areas all were $272 a foot or less, but we saw dramatic increases. So I thought that was interesting. A couple of those areas, medium home prices are way up. We also saw that in the cost per foot. So it tells you something. And we saw this similar trend in Virginia, which is why I think this is a reflection of our suburban markets. Right now, larger spaces aren't performing nearly as well as smaller spaces. Closer in areas right now are not performing as well as those further out parts of our area, mainly because affordable housing is scarce and people are expanding their searches to these further out areas to find that affordable housing. Same thing we saw in Virginia. I'm very much seeing this in Montgomery County. And this will explain something. So we're going to transition into our biggest losers, which is interesting. We first saw Chevy Chase, Maryland. The median home price in Chevy Chase, which historically is one of the most sought after parts of Montgomery County. It's down 15%. There's one exception, Kenwood Forest. You guys were up a little bit, but other than that, the three other zip codes in Chevy Chase, Maryland, we saw an average of 15% decrease in median home sale prices, which went from $870,000 to $740,000 a year. So that's pretty significant. And I looked at the cost per foot, that also happens to be down about 6%. So it's not just in the median home price, it's in the cost per foot. The good news is, in Chevy Chase, Maryland, you're still at $458 a foot, which is nearly double what the average is in the county. So you can see it's incredibly expensive, it's holding its value, but we're not seeing gains, we're actually seeing some losses kind of across that area. And that's an interesting thing because historically Chevy Chase has gone up year after year after year after year. 2016, you may have pumped the brakes a little bit. Similarly, Potomac, Maryland, you're down 4.3% from $870,000 to $830,000 on average. That area also historically performs really well. We're seeing the same thing happen there. To round out our losers list, I looked at Damascus, Maryland, which is one of those further out areas. So the reason I wanted to bring this up is because I mentioned that everyone's flocking to the outside parts of the county for affordable housing. Well, Damascus is an example where this did not happen. The average price went down about $35,000 in the median home sale price. So you went from $339,000 to $300,000 in a median home sale price. The cost per foot was actually pretty well flatlined, so it wasn't a big change there. But it would go against what I originally said, which was the further out areas are performing well. Because here's the caveat. I think this leads into my prediction and what I'm seeing overall in Montgomery County markets. So if this is something you're interested in, I would pay attention at this point. Land, larger lots, open spaces, these are things that in the 90s and 2000s that people really went for. They wanted a half-acre lot. They wanted an acre lot. And we've just seen in the last couple years those factors not perform nearly as well as smaller spaces and closer in areas. These town centers that are popping up all around the county, they're doing really well. And we're seeing the half-acre lot plots not doing nearly as well. So Damascus, Maryland, for instance, everything is on average about a half an acre, and we saw that didn't perform as well. So if you're thinking about buying in Montgomery County and you want that, that's excellent. You can probably get a little bit better of a deal where historically that might have been harder. On the other hand, if you're sitting in one of those properties and you're thinking about selling, you're not seeing the gains that you used to see, so it may not be a bad time to consider just moving forward. I don't see those markets performing well in 2017 either because they didn't do much in 2016. I will also say Bethesda, Chevy Chase, kind of going back into that. We talked about Chevy Chase, but neighboring Bethesda, which has historically done 5, 10, 15% year over year, you're really flat right now. Things are not moving, and that's probably because we've seen steady increases from 2009 through 2015, and eventually there's a ceiling for everything. And I think those markets have pumped their brakes a little bit too. So Montgomery County, Maryland, overall, as you know, the median home price did not change very much. Most of the county kind of just stayed the same. They traded dollars. Last year they're here, this year they're here. It's nominal increases or decreases, but those are some of the areas that we saw gains and we saw losses. And overall, I think we're in for a healthy market in 2017 in Montgomery County. You have some of the best schools in the country, things that people are always want to want, but ultimately I don't see a ton of changes in those closer in areas. I think we'll have to see, but this year some of them didn't do as well. So that's where we're going to leave it with Montgomery County, Maryland. If you have any specific questions about your neighborhood, feel free to send them in. We're happy to answer them. You can use the email address info@thefoxgroupdc.com, or as always, the hashtag AskJohnFox. And again, we're happy to answer any of your questions. We'll always post this stuff on our social media accounts. You can check this episode out, plus our recap of DC markets and Northern Virginia markets, www.thefoxgroupdc.com. These videos will be there, links to all of our social accounts, check them out. And we really do look forward to having an excellent 2017. We hope that you found our recap of the markets helpful. And as we launch into 2017, we look forward to working with you. We're at Compass, we're excited, and we're ready to get to work. Thanks.